Welcome to the Dino Watch Podcast, a show helping you to separate the facts from the fiction as we look at incident reports from the world and break down where dinosaurs have been sighted in the wild. In today's episode, we are reflecting on one of the biggest challenges which faces us now that these animals have escaped, and that is the presence of the Mosasaurus in waters across the world. Tracking this animal is hard, and leaked classified documents have shown that militaries have tried, with the animal posing a huge threat to marine traffic, which is using the waterways it chooses to make its home. Today, we are talking to someone who witnessed one vessel learn firsthand what happens when you come face to face with the Mosasaurus. Michael Hooper is a fisherman who witnessed a whaling vessel directly attacked by the animal, with his crew attempting to rescue survivors as the gigantic ship was dragged underneath the waves by the Mosasaurus. Michael, thanks for joining us. Why don't you tell us your background?
Thank you for having me. I'm still a little shooken up. I've been fishing these waters for the last 7 years, and I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
I
can
don't
imagine
know
a
how
lot
we're
of people.
gonna.
I was going to say, I can imagine a lot of people are in the same boat. Pardon the pun, but I can imagine a lot of people are on the same level as you right now in terms of not seeing things like this.
You're right. I don't know how we're gonna go forward. It just after that, it's a wake up call. How am I gonna continue my job, providing
Yeah.
for my crew? I don't know. I hope somebody has the answer.
Yeah, we'll come to all of that. We'll go through the scenario itself, what those potential answers could be. But before we come to them, I wanted to give our listeners a little bit of background. So obviously you've been on the ocean for a while. So before this particular Mosasaurus encounter, what was the biggest threat that faced you on the oceans?
It depends on the season, honestly. I'd probably just say the storms themselves.
Yeah.
There's nothing my men can't handle that's in the water, except for that thing.
Yeah. I appreciate it's a way of life, and a lot of the time, the seasons and things are things that you just have to adapt to. So, obviously, those are all challenges that you're used to in your line of work. But this is definitely something very, very different. So, describe the incident itself to us. I understand that you were quite far away from the whaling ship when you witnessed the attack initially, and I believe you actually spotted it through binoculars. Is that correct?
That's correct. I've had these pairs for the longest time. One of my good friends gave it to me. It's kind of like a good luck charm in a way.
Okay. And reports say that the ship itself was overturned. But obviously whaling ships themselves are huge. So talk us through that a little bit. How is it possible that an animal was able to do that? And what was it like witnessing that? Because obviously these are huge vessels that you never expect to see overturned.
Well, it was just a regular day. The forecast said we were going to have some weather. We didn't, but it looks like a different storm was out there.
Yeah.
We saw the ripples in the water. I guess it must have passed us. We didn't have anything in our nets. It it must have known that they had something.
Yeah.
I followed the ripples in the water. I took my binoculars out, and then it was out. The two jaws around that thing. It just it pulled them down
Yeah.
just as quick as I could snap my finger.
Yeah. How did it, I guess, where on the ship did it bite that it was able to get such a good grasp that it could pull it down like that?
It looked like it was towards the middle. They were just raising a large net out,
Yeah.
and it went for it, and it didn't care what was around it.
just went straight in and pulled it under. That matches a lot of reports we've seen, at least with smaller fishing vessels as well. So I'm interested. Obviously, at that point, marinas very much, and this is true for the Navy as much as it is for merchants, there is a code of supporting people who are in distress. So obviously, your vessel went to the scene very, very quickly. And I'm interested, what was that scene like when you got there? What was the damage like, and was there much of that boat left?
There wasn't much left.
Mm.
I don't know if we got everybody. I mean, we did the best we could before we
Yeah,
went over there. It was definitely one of those situations where we had to think about ourselves too, before we put ourselves in harm, because we risked our getting caught up into that just even going over there.
yeah.
I just I'm glad we did the right thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, so let's come on to that. So at the start of the show, as we mentioned, your crew attempted to rescue survivors. So were there many people left to pull out of the water? And what kind of state were those people in once you got to them, if there were indeed any you could help?
I didn't get a good number from them, but
Yeah,
they think everybody was there. I know they just brought on some new crew. Um, we we must have rescued at least 10 people.
okay, wow.
They didn't know what hit them. It took a while for them to even process. We At first we didn't even know what we saw, and then
Yeah.
it breached the water again, and we got a good look at it.
So obviously you're in close proximity to where this animal was. What do you think stopped the mosasaur from attacking your boat as well at that point after this incident? Do you think it had just had enough and decided to move on? Or was there anything particularly different about your boat? Or was it just luck?
Look, I guess, but it must have also been full. That was
Yeah,
quite a catch that it took down with it.
yeah, I can imagine.
After how much boat it bit off, it must have had a stomach ache too.
Yeah, yeah, that's, yeah. It's hard to think about just that whole sort of animal from the depths is quite terrifying actually when you think about that, and the idea that there is not really any logic behind this animal or the things that are happening because we just don't understand enough about this animal and how it would behave to really predict that behavior. So definitely something scary to think about, I would say. So are you still going out on the water at the moment, or has this changed your perspective? I know at the start you were saying you're not really sure how you're going to go forwards. So what are your thoughts on that at the moment, career-wise?
It was definitely an eye opener. If this thing's out there, what else is? And
Yeah,
at the end of the day, we've all got families we got to look out for. But until somebody does something about this, we're all going to have to find something different.
yeah. Do you think there's anything you could do to alleviate any of the risks associated with it, or is it just not even worth thinking about?
I'm going to have to go with the latter.
Okay.
It's too much risk. And
Yeah.
if that thing took down a whaling boat, I don't think any boat big enough will keep us safe.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've heard a lot of people say that the solution is to just get a bigger boat, but there isn't really any boat bigger than a whaling vessel, and if it can take that down, I'm fairly confident it could take anything down. So it's certainly something to be conscious of. Um, so obviously this situation is very different to anything else that we've covered, at least on this show, in the fact that a lot of the animals that we've looked at are land-based animals. So they're a little bit easier to contain. Whereas with the Mosasaurus, obviously the water and the ocean is so unexplored as it is that it's really hard to contain an animal like this. So in your words, what do you think that the Navy can do to address the problem of the Mosasaurus? And how do we contain a huge marine reptile like this now it's out in the wild? Is there any way to contain it?
Look, if this thing got out, it's just not worth repeating the same mistakes. They need to go
Yeah.
in, they need to take it out so we can all get back to our lives. I just,
Simple as that.
I don't understand how something like this could even happen. They say
Yeah.
they're taking the precautions. What does that even mean anymore?
Yeah, it's certainly a challenging period of time, and I think a lot of us have seen in the years since 2018, but even before then, that perhaps some of the measures and restrictions, like the Gene Guard Act that were put in place to protect us against these things, really haven't done what they were supposed to do. And we're certainly in a situation now which is more challenging than I think many of us would like. Um, so obviously, Dino Watch, this podcast is all about people's encounters with the wild, and I think yours in particular, Michael, is very harrowing, and I think it's quite clear from just the way you've been conducting yourself in this interview that you're not the most comfortable with doing this, which I totally understand given the circumstances you found yourself in. So I do just want to give you an opportunity to leave any final parting thoughts with our listeners around this, because obviously this is a very serious encounter, and I think we need to encourage people to be safe out there. So if you've got any final thoughts you wanted to share, then please do feel free to use this space to do that now.
Stay out of the water. It's not worth it.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a very fair comment. Well, again, I know that this isn't the most comfortable interview for you, so thank you so much for giving us your time. I really do appreciate it.
My pleasure. And hopefully nobody else experiences this.
Yes, I agree with that. Absolutely. So I have a shocking announcement to share, and that is that next week's episode will see us joined by a spokesperson from the Department of Fish and Wildlife themselves. We've wanted to make this happen for some time, and after plenty of ignored emails and messages, we have finally managed to get a hold of someone who is willing to come on the show. Stay tuned as we will be asking all of the hard questions about dinosaurs in the wild. And we'll make sure we get to the bottom of all the conspiracies and the cover ups which are out there. If you enjoy the show, make sure to subscribe wherever you listen. Together, we can learn how to survive with dinosaurs in the wild.